Welcome to the Shifted podcast and video series. Each week, we talk to classroom teachers about how their teaching and learning has shifted since the onset of the global pandemic. We delve into classroom practices, daily routines, structures and schedules, digital tips, tools, and tricks that you can use in your classroom right away. Welcome to the Shifted podcast and video series, episode 5. My name is John Hamlin. I work with the Greater Victoria School District here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, home to the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation, upon whose land we live, we learn, and today we podcast. This week, we are talking to Kate Baker from Oak Bay High School. Kate is a PE teacher, among the many other things. And in this episode, Kate will be talking to us about the digital tools that she has used during the remote learning period of the pandemic to maintain connection with her students. Connectivity is such a key part of her practice, building relationships, not only with herself to the students, but helping students facilitate relationships with each other is a key part of her work. So she'll delve into some ideas that she's had and some tools that she's used to help maintain these relationships while students are learning from home. It's a fascinating look at the world of PE instruction in a remote environment. I hope you enjoy episode 5. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Take care. All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're sitting with Kate Baker from Oak Bay High School, and this Zoom conversation is beaming to you live from the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation. And Kate is a PE and many other academic subject area teacher. And we're going to talk a little bit this afternoon about what teaching in the remote learning pandemic COVID-19 landscape has been like, and what tools and tricks and interesting suggestions she might have for other teachers in those same subject areas. So Kate, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
No problem. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what digital platforms were you using prior to the pandemic occurring and the end of school in our traditional sense in mid-March?
For all of my classes, I've been paperless for 2 years already. So we're heavy into tech as is, and we have access to Chromebooks. So we use those periodically within my PE classes for our health and wellness lessons, and obviously in my academic classes. So they're familiar with that platform and, using that as their online tool for research or for group work or for putting things together to turn in. So that's a big and everything I do goes through Google Classroom. It always has, and that's the platform the school decided to use as a whole. So that was really easy for us as we transitioned to online learning. We just kept status quo, kept the same thing. So that was really easy. For PE, the girls and I have used a lot of apps to kind of track our different activities. And the Map My Run app we've used in the past, and we continue to use that through online learning. So it was a way for them to log activity, but also prove to me that they were actually doing the activity. You can send out logs and you can send out, fill out this spreadsheet with the type of activity you did, but nothing was really stopping them from, just pushing a number and saying they did, X, Y, or Z, even if they didn't. So I was trying to find ways in which to promote them to continue to be active, but also a way to share their activity and for us to stay connected socially, because that's what they were really missing the most. They're really missing seeing their friends. They're really missing seeing each other, like as the cohort we created. And since we work in a linear model, we knew each other really well. We met in September and this happened in March. So the bond that we had already had was really important, and really important for me to try to find ways to keep that going, instead of them just kind of putting numbers into a computer and then clicking send. So we use Map My Run, and I created a calendar for them, like month by month, that we work through together, and just use different strategies for them to share what they were doing in different ways.
I would imagine that tracking your activity using a platform like that gives you a great opportunity to reflect on your growth or potential
Mm-hmm.
lack thereof, and really develop that introspection and reflection into one's own growth as an athlete too.
Yeah, it was really neat actually, because the ways in which I was encouraging them to share their activity really held everybody else accountable, especially me kind of providing them with a schedule and routine, as if they would have been in the classroom anyways, just to try to keep them on track and to keep them kind of focused on what their life would have been like if things were normal, which a lot of kids could struggle with, time management and routine and structure, which the school provides for them automatically. And now they're here at home by themselves, trying to navigate that world by themselves. So I thought I would do my best to provide them with that structure and a plan, so they didn't have to think about it. And eventually, right, you always have the kids that kind of have their own focuses because they play a competitive sport and they have specific activities that they need to do. So I gave them the option, right, where today, here's your option if you want to try this new workout, or if you have something of your own, then there was a way for them to share that with me. So I was doing my best to appeal to the masses. And it was really important for me to gather their feedback at the beginning to see what the most effective avenue would be. Like, what's the most effective way for me to communicate with you? Right? Like, because they're just bombarded by so much information. So, like, what platform do you check the most, or that would you want to check the most? And just making sure that everybody's needs were met. And it was great. I was just blown away by their level of participation and their feedback at the end, by them saying that they really looked forward to it and that they were more active during that time than they would have been if we were just following along at our regular school day. So that was really nice to hear.
That's really interesting. So what is it? What's the key difference, do you think, that would for those kids to be more active? Is it just that it's more, in tune with their personal schedules and lifestyles, and they have more flexibility around that?
Um, I think just giving them choice and giving them options, and finding that balance between just encouraging them to be active, obviously, and just, hey, go fill this spreadsheet out and send it back to me, and you know trying not to schedule their lives so much, because they do have a lot going on and they have so many things to process, but finding a balance in between that, where you're giving them choice of the activities they can do on particular days, and then encouraging them to share that in many different ways as well, and just kind of reestablishing the benefits of establishing a routine in their lives, and making time for that physical fitness, because the social emotional part of distance learning was really, really, really important. And that's why I decided to get started right away. Was, you guys are going through so much and battling so much, so being active and getting outside and getting your heart rate up will be the best thing for you to do from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, that's Bonnie Henry's been reiterating that message,
Mm-hmm.
right? Get outside, stay active, stay healthy, take care
Yeah.
of yourself in that way. So if you're, it sounds like that was a highly engaging pathway that you took with those PE students. But looking at your academic areas, can you talk a little bit about what courses you're teaching in that realm and what the engagement level was like in those areas?
Sure. I teach Explorations in Social Studies 11, And we, right before spring break, we had just finished our philosophy unit, and we were transitioning to our local history unit when we were going to return from spring break, which is my favorite out of them all. We have a lot of international students, and I had a lot of students this year that weren't born here. So that was really cool, where our city is so rich in really cool history. So I always look forward to it. So again, we'd already used Google Classroom, so we just jumped right back in. And again, I wanted them to have a way to communicate with each other and see each other, because we're so heavy, like, discussion based and group work. So we've used Flipgrid in the past, and they knew how to use it. So I'd used it for something called Share Some Sunshine, which was a current events based assignment, not COVID related, and just finding something good that's happening in the world, something funny, something cute, that they would share via Flipgrid, and then require them to watch 5 and respond to 5. So they actually get to see a classmate's face, and vice versa, and interact with what they chose to show. And there's a plethora of everything, right? Just videos of animals doing funny things, or, humanitarian stories. So it gave the kids a chance to talk about something that interests them, and then also engage back and forth with each other. So that was a big one.
Certainly step outside of the deluge of COVID-19 media news coverage, right? It's
yeah.
To force
yeah, they're just bombarded with so much about it, and I thought, like, we don't need to talk about this here. We're good.
So thinking about how you've managed to balance everything over the past couple months, and I know you've got kids of your own. So how were you able to manage having your kids at home and juggling everything? Because I know that's a challenge for some.
Yeah, I mean, as teachers, right, with kids too, that we as teachers thrive on structure and routine, and our kids do as well, right? They need it, and there's times to take breaks. Like a spring break is awesome to take breaks from your routine and give your kids a break too. But you all notice that there's a period of time where you kind of need that back in your life. And so after spring break was over, my husband, who's also a teacher, we came up with a schedule, and we followed it, like, to the best of our abilities. And meetings and stuff kind of throw it off a bit, but it gave the kids something to look at and say, okay, we do this and we do this and we do this. So we would go for a walk first thing in the morning. I think 7:30, or my kids are early birds, at 7:30. And then we set up a home office in our basement, and my husband would go down to work from 8 to 9:30, and I would do school with my own kids. Then he'd come up at 9:30, and I go down from 9:30 to 11 while they took a break and went outside. And so we just had to flip-flop, trade off, and and make it work. And the schedule really helped. And as kind of COVID went on and longer, the schedule kind of came less and less. But it really helped us kind of get in the mindset that this is what's happening, and this is how we're going to get things done, and honor everybody's commitments. So that really helped at the beginning.
That's great. So let's say we don't know what September is going to look like. It could be a stage 1, stage 2, who knows? But when things go back to normal, are there any practices you picked up in the past couple months that you think you'll carry with you?
Yeah, I've done a lot of reflection, and I really wanted to make sure I reached out to our inclusive ed department, because they carried a lot of weight on their shoulders with their caseload and the students that carry designations and need the extra attention. So I reached out to our inclusive ed department head and just wanted to talk to her about her experiences, and also the EA I had in my English 9 class. I reached out to her and said, what worked, what didn't work, tell me everything, because they're the ones that experienced it all, right? I only know what worked and what didn't work for me and my students, because I constantly ask them for feedback. So I found that to be crucial information, right? The info they have is gold if you want to make sure you're continuing to develop your practice and honor everybody's needs. So based on that information, I've just been thinking about maintaining simpler is always better, and a one-stop shop. And in Google Classroom, you can get so bogged down with messages you send in the stream and things that you post within your classroom section and how you organize it. So I've definitely just consolidated all of that just to make sure that they never need to check their email, because kids hate checking emails, and teach them in September where they go to one place in Google Classroom to read what they need to do, and that's it. They'll never have to go anywhere else, and they'll never have to go searching. And anytime I need to pass over information, it's always in that one spot. And that's what will help the support staff, that will help them as well, is they can go straight to what I've posted and find what they need without scrolling through everything.
Streamlining communication. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Are there any, if you had to give any other tips or tricks to other PE or socials teachers out there in terms of stuff you'd suggest trying out, any last suggestions?
Just finding a way for the students to demonstrate their learning or show what they've been doing in real life, and get creative in that capacity. When we go back in September, if we are in that phase 2 where it is blended, making sure that when you do see them in real life, to go over how to use these specific platforms if you haven't used them before, so you can integrate them when we move to, or if we move to a more distance focus. But my biggest piece of advice is to reach out to that inclusive ed department, because they hold a lot of valuable information of how to reach the masses and not just the kids that will communicate. And yeah, because that's being the most valuable for sure.
Awesome. Can't thank you enough, Kate. Thanks so much for your
time. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. All the best.
All right, you too. See you later, John.